This is Auditory Anthology. I'm your curator, Keith Conrad. Release new episodes every Thursday, so if you like what you hear, I hope you'll take the time to rate and review our show on your podcast player of choice, and be sure to recommend the show to a friend. That'll help us grow the show and continue to share these stories with you each and every week. If you have a story you'd like to contribute to this series, you can visit submissions.soundconceptmedia.com or just follow the link in the show notes. This week we have an original story that was submitted to Auditory Anthology called It's About Time by DH Parish, which is a little like the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers, except the pod people do odds and ends around the community.
"It's about time," Kate said as we walked our familiar route. "What do you mean?" I asked. She gestured forward. "Look up there. Can't you see what's changed?" I knew this path fairly well, but my wife knew it more intimately. She'd been making this same trek exactly 2.54 miles, she had calculated, for several years. I only started joining her when COVID left me working from home and I couldn't go to my gym anymore. "No, looks the same to me," I replied. She pointed up at a traffic light. "That's new. Just put up, although it looks like it's still not operational." There were several men, township employees in bright yellow vests and distinctive yellow-orange hard hats working on what looked like the light's electrical box. They waved as we walked past. None wore masks. "This intersection's always been dangerous," Kate continued. "There's no way for cars coming out onto the main road to turn left safely. I'm frankly surprised there hasn't been one of those makeshift memorials set up for some kid who got hit by a driver trying to rush that turn. It was not a question of if it would happen, only when. Lord knows I complained enough." "Well, then that's good news," I said. "The township's finally responsive to its citizens. Good government for a change." About 2 weeks later, along the same route, Kate pointed with joy at a second light going up. This was, she assured me, another dangerous intersection, although not as bad as the first. We surmised they must have been taking advantage of some federal funds to start dealing with a backlog of projects. At least some good was coming of this pandemic. 2 weeks later, we saw a third traffic light going up, this one at a less busy intersection that had already had four-way stop signs. Kate didn't have an explanation for this one. She'd never complained about it, she said. Perhaps the new light was meant to deter people from using it as a through street, or perhaps to prevent speeding. Or maybe people were ignoring the stop signs, and this would command more attention. As we watched the yellow-clad men and women erecting poles, an older gentleman walking a small terrier passed us, the dog straining at the leash and yapping loudly at the workers. "I guess your dog doesn't like the new traffic signal," Kate said. "I don't either," the man replied, pulling the dog away and trudging past us. The dog raged against the light with the most vicious barking it could muster. The noise did not stop until they were finally out of earshot. Next week, on a Monday afternoon, we saw something different. There was a crew putting in speed bumps. We counted 3 along one of the roads. An elementary school sat at the end of this street, so these bumps presumably addressed speeding someone had reported. As we got to the last bump, we ran into that same man and his dog, which was again barking at the workers, ready to take them all on if only the man would release him to his prey. "I guess the dog isn't a fan of speed bumps either," Kate said. "No, and neither am I," the man said. He then looked around as if he were worried someone might be eavesdropping and told us in a strange whisper, "This is all wrong. They shouldn't be doing this." "Why not?" Kate asked. "It's for the kids' safety. Too many people ignore the fact that this is a school zone. You don't want to read about some poor child getting run over because some idiot couldn't be bothered to drive the speed limit. Isn't it worth it to protect the kids?" "Is it?" the man asked. The dog turned to Kate and barked at her as if to agree. "Come on, can't be too safe, can you?" I said. "Can't you?" the man replied. The next Monday, as we started on our walk, we saw a traffic light laid out horizontally on the ground at the end of our street. Sure enough, by Tuesday afternoon there was a yellow-clad crew busy erecting it. "This I don't get," Kate said as we stopped to survey the scene. "Our street doesn't need a traffic light. It's too small. Except for the people who live here, there probably aren't 20 cars a day using this intersection, and that includes the postal and delivery trucks." Several men were gathered around the electrical box, doing something with the wiring. She called out to them to ask why this was going up, but none answered. She went over and tapped one guy on the shoulder. A burly, bearded man in his 40s who looked the part of a construction worker turned around. "Sorry to bother you, but can you tell me why you're putting up this traffic light?" Kate asked. "For the safety of our community, for the betterment of our township," he replied, in a robotic monotone, smiling as he spoke. "Of course, but why are you putting up this one?" Kate asked. "For the safety of our community, for the betterment of our township," he replied again in the same inflectionless voice. He turned back to his work. "This was useless," Kate muttered as we walked away. "These guys aren't going to know," I said to her. "They're just following orders on a dispatch sheet." "Still, it's a little weird." "The township seems to have been responsive to your other complaints. There's probably some good reason we don't know about. Just contact them about this." "When we get home, I will," Kate said. The men all waved goodbye to us as we walked away. True to her word, Kate sent an email to the Township Public Works office when we got home. She received an immediate, automatic reply telling her that her inquiry was important and that someone would address her concerns right away, as public safety and responsiveness to the community's concerns were their highest priorities. The next Monday, we saw yet another new traffic light going up at another little-traveled intersection. As we walked by, Kate paused and turned back to look at the workers. "What's wrong?" I asked Kate. "That man standing over there, the guy holding the shovel. Doesn't he look familiar?" "Isn't that the old man with the yappy terrier?" Kate said. "No way," I said. "Yes way," she replied. "Look." She was right. The grumpy old man who had complained about the speed bumps was now working construction for the township. He no longer seemed grumpy. Far from it, he was smiling along with his work crew. The terrier was not there. Kate went up to the old man. "I guess you changed your mind about all these lights." The old man looked at her and nodded, replying, "For the safety of our community, for the betterment of our township." "What does your dog think of your new job?" I asked. "What dog?" he asked. Later that afternoon, Kate received a call, an automated message thanking her for her inquiry and inviting her to come to the township office tomorrow afternoon at 4:15 p.m. to discuss her concerns. She was thrilled and got to work preparing what she would tell them. I confess I almost felt a bit sorry for the functionary who would have to deal with her, as I knew what she could do in these situations. She asked if I wanted to come along. My working from home had become a layoff from home, and with no good job prospects coming up, I figured, why not? I could even be a good cop to her bad cop if need be. The office was about a 20-minute walk from our home. On the way, we counted several other brand-new traffic lights going up, each with its yellow-vested work crew. We must have seen nearly 50 workers busy on road safety construction projects. The township building sits on Main Street in the middle of the business district. The building is a squat gray affair erected during the Great Depression under the auspices of the Works Progress Administration. Neither of us, we realized, had ever been inside before. It was a cloudy day, and the structure seemed to blend into the dreary, overcast sky, giving the sense as we approached the entrance that the building never ended, that its reach encompassed the whole world. A police officer, a stout woman in her 40s, stood guard outside and confronted us. "Do you have an appointment?" "We do," Kate said. "Both of you?" the officer asked. "Well, I suppose theoretically just me, but this is my spouse," Kate said. "Only those with appointments may go in. As it's stated in your invitation, this is essential for the safety of our community," the officer said. "Really?" Kate asked. I saw her eyes narrow and jaw lock as she gritted her teeth. She was ready to stand her ground on this, but I didn't think it was worth it. "Don't worry, honey, you'll get 'em. You don't need me for this," I said. "I'll see you at home. Fight the power." I gave her a kiss and walked away. I went home and turned on the television. I fell asleep watching Office reruns, waking up around 8. Looking around, I realized Kate wasn't back yet. I didn't have any texts or messages from her. I called her phone, but nothing. I was getting ready to panic when the door opened and Kate walked in. I ran to her and gave her a hug. "Thank goodness," I said. "I'm starting to worry. Are you okay?" She disengaged from my embrace. "Of course I'm okay. I've never been better." "So what happened?" I asked. "Did they explain what's going on? Did they give in to your irresistible powers of persuasion?" "They explained the value of the construction projects for the community, the good they were doing for the safety of us all. I realize now why they are all not only beneficial but necessary for the safety of our community," Kate said. "So they won you over?" "They told me," Kate continued, "there was so much more they could do if only more people would join in the effort. And they are right, so right." As Kate said the word "right," she raised her right hand and punched the air as if to make a cheer of salute. I noticed as she did this, she was holding a blue tote bag with the township insignia in her left hand. "Oh, what's in the bag?" I asked. "My new uniform," she said. "A new uniform?" "I joined the effort," she said. She opened the bag and took out one of those distinctive vests, holding it up proudly against her chest to model it. "I guess they really persuaded you," I said, a bit taken aback at the turn of events. "But what about your regular work? Do you have time for a second job? Can you really do this?" Kate smiled. "How can I not do this?" I startled awake the next day at 7 a.m. to the sound of the front door slamming. Kate's space in bed next to me was empty. I figured she'd gone to the store to get milk or coffee, as we were out of both and she typically needed them to function in the morning. Having nothing on my agenda, I went back to sleep. I woke up again around 8:30. Kate still hadn't come back yet. I checked my phone. No messages or emails. I sent her a text. "Where are you?" She responded immediately. "I'm at work for the betterment of our township. Can't talk now." We were still out of coffee, so I made myself some tea and went to my laptop to see if I had gotten any bites on job applications or if there were anything new available. Nothing of interest came up, although I did get a pop-up ad asking if I'd like to embark on a fulfilling career in public service with the township. The ad featured a photo of a group of young men and women, all in those same vests and hard hats, standing at an intersection somewhere in the township I wasn't familiar with. They were all smiling. I went back to surfing the internet and binging The Office. Nodding off at some point, I woke up around 3. Kate was still not back, and I didn't have any messages from her. Having nothing else to do, I went for a walk on our usual path, hoping I might run into her. There were crews working almost every other street on some project, installing traffic lights, speed bumps and road signs, digging up roads, patching roads, you name it. They were all smiling as they labored, although I never heard them speak among themselves. I didn't see Kate with any of them. About 2/3 of the way through the walk, I texted Kate to see where she was so I could find her. The reply came, "I'm at work for the betterment of our township. Can't talk now." I finished my walk, and having nothing else to do, started preparing dinner. Whatever Kate was doing, she'd probably be pretty exhausted after this long day. She walked in the door around 7. I went to her and gave her a big hug. She let me, although she didn't hug back. "You must be hungry after a long day. I made dinner. It should be about ready if you are," I said. "I'm not hungry," she replied. I think I will just go to bed." "Is everything all right?" I asked. "Oh, yes, everything is wonderful. Everything is always wonderful when you work for the betterment of our township and the safety of our community." She forced a smile as she said this, and then disappeared into our bedroom. I hesitated, following after her. Just then the oven timer went off and I went to the kitchen to shut it off and take the chicken out. I hadn't eaten all day, and it smelled wonderful. I walked back to the bedroom to see if Kate wanted to change her mind, but she was already asleep under the covers. I returned to the kitchen and ate by myself. She was exhausted from this new job, and we could talk in the morning. When I woke the next morning, however, Kate was already gone. I texted her to see where she was, and the reply came, "I'm at work for the betterment of our township, can't talk now." I needed to find her. I looked up the township office to see if I could figure out where she might be. The website indicated that for community security and safety, all communication with the township had to be through email. I sent one, marked urgent, that I needed to find where my wife, who was working for the township, was. I received what seemed to be an automatic reply that the township valued all constituent inquiries and that they would respond promptly. 5 minutes later, I received a second email. The township would be happy to provide the information I needed, but could not, for security reasons, do so without verifying my identity in person. They gave me an appointment for 10 a.m. That was only about an hour from now, so I replied yes. I would get to the bottom of this. About 15 minutes later, I got a call from an unknown number. Hoping it might be a call for a job interview, I answered. It was Kate's supervisor, Rosa. Kate hadn't responded to any emails or calls yesterday. She was reaching out to me as Kate's emergency contact to make sure Kate was okay and to see if there were a way to talk her out of quitting. "Quitting?" I asked. Rosa explained that Kate had sent an email yesterday resigning from her job, effective immediately. Kate was leaving, it had said, to pursue more rewarding opportunities. Rosa didn't want to press me for details, but she was hoping there'd be a way to persuade Kate to stay on. She told me to let Kate know that they could offer Kate a little raise if that would help, but that in any event Kate should call her back. I told her Kate was unavailable just now, but that I would be sure to give her the message. Rosa thanked me and hung up. I texted Kate to get back to me ASAP. I received back that same reply. "I'm at work for the betterment of our township, can't talk now." My temples began to throb. The whole thing was giving me a headache, and we still didn't have any coffee. I went to the bathroom to get some ibuprofen, replying to Kate as I walked through our bedroom to get there that this was urgent as I needed to speak to her now. As soon as I sent it, I heard a buzz by Kate's side of the bed. I stopped and walked over to see what it was. It was Kate's phone, lit up from my newest text, rested on her nightstand. As I stared at the light, my own phone buzzed with a new message from Kate. "I'm at work for the betterment of our township, can't talk now." I quickly grabbed my keys, jumped into my car, and drove to the township office. The ride took twice as long as usual. There were a few cars on the roads, but there was a traffic light now up or going up at nearly every cross street, no matter how small. There were speed bumps everywhere, and several roads were partially torn up and under construction. There were groups of 4 or 5 workers on pretty much every corner. I scanned each crew for Kate, but never saw her. I pulled into the township parking lot, which was mostly empty, at about 9:40. I went to the front door. The same officer I'd seen when I'd been here with Kate 2 days ago was standing there, although now she wore one of those yellow vests over her blue uniform. She confronted me. "Do you have an appointment?" "Yes," I assured her. "What time?" she asked. 10, I said. "You have to wait outside until 15 minutes before your appointment," she said. I looked at my watch. "But that's only in 5 minutes. Can't you just let me in?" I asked. "You need to wait," she said. As I waited the 5 minutes, no one else entered the building, but 2 people walked out, each holding the same blue tote bag Kate had brought home 2 nights prior. At 9:45, the officer told me I could go in and proceed to the 3rd floor. I walked through a double set of thick, frosted glass doors into the building. The lobby was cavernous, much larger than it appeared from the doorway, but empty. I saw a bank of elevators at the opposite end and walked toward them. One of the elevators opened at my approach, and I stepped in. I went to push the button for the 3rd floor, but it seemed to light up even before I pressed it. The elevator traveled slowly upward, landing on the 3rd floor with an abrupt jerk. The doors opened, and a loud buzz sounded, which did not stop until I exited the elevator, which promptly closed shut when I did. The elevator deposited me in the middle of a long corridor. A printed sign directed all visitors to proceed to the right, to room 309. I followed the path to an open doorway. A gray-haired woman wearing a blue surgical mask stood behind a counter in front of a computer. As I approached her, she raised her palm out to me and said, "Please remain where you are, for safety." I started to speak, but she cut me off. "Please, hold up your driver's license." I pulled it out and held it up so she could see it. She craned her neck toward me and squinted to read it. Her eyes were bloodshot. "All is in order," she said. "How may I help you?" No sooner had she uttered the words when a loud buzz sounded. Her body briefly spasmed, as if she'd just experienced a small seizure. "Forgive me," she said, composing herself. "How may the township better your life and keep our community safe?" "I need to find out where my wife is." The woman glanced at her computer. "Your wife would be Kate Driscoll?" "Yes." "I have her location right here. She's doing good work for the township. Let me write it down for you." "Thank you." The woman maintained eye contact with me, writing without looking down at the paper. "Would you like to have some information about fulfilling opportunities to work with your fellow citizens for the safety of the community and the betterment of our township?" she asked. "No, thank you," I said. "Are you sure?" she continued. "There's nothing greater than serving the township and providing for the safety of the community. We have many opportunities available." "No, I just need to find my wife. Can you just give me what I came for?" "Of course. But please consider this offer." Her voice quivered at the word offer. She folded the paper and placed it in a white envelope and then put it on the counter, covered with several township brochures. I grabbed them and turned to leave. "Thank you for allowing us to serve." Her words trailed off as I ran out the door and back to the elevator bank. One was already waiting there, and I jumped in and pressed the button for the lobby. I opened the envelope to see where I needed to go to find Kate. What I read was the following. "Get out. Your Kate is lost. Don't try to find her or it will get you. It has kept me here for 2 weeks. I think it's doing good, but it's crazy and it's growing stronger. Leave while you can." The elevator came to an abrupt halt at the lobby level just as I finished reading. My heart was thumping wildly. I waited for the doors to part, ready to run. They did not. I jammed repeatedly on the door open button. Nothing. I pressed the emergency button. A voice came over the intercom.
"Your safety is the township's highest priority. A crew will be with you shortly. Please remain calm."
The elevator began slowly descending, stopping after about 20 seconds. Then lights went out, leaving me in pitch blackness. I heard the doors open and then complete silence. That is the last thing I remember about the building. I woke up in my bed this morning. I don't know how I got home. Kate is lying next to me, sound asleep, an angelic smile on her lips as if lost in a wonderful dream. My neck is a little sore, and I can feel a small scar at the nape, although I don't recall getting injured there. The clock on my nightstand reads 5:58 a.m. I should get going for the day. No time for a shower or breakfast. I just need to throw on some clothes and put on my beautiful yellow vest and my orange-yellow helmet. I have work to do, and it's important work. the most important work there is. It is for the safety of our community, for the betterment of our township.
This week's story was It's About Time by DH Parish. It's an original story that was submitted to Auditory Anthology. Coming up next week, we have Amateur in the Chancery by George O. Smith. If someone's life depended on it, could you explain the concept of right and left to someone who had tentacles and had never heard of either of them? Auditory Anthology is curated and produced by me, Keith Conrad. Your narrator is Darren Marlar. Be sure to check out Darren's award-winning paranormal podcast, Weird Darkness. It's available at weirddarkness.com and your podcast app of choice.